first up, coming from Emily. How do you feel about family vlogging channels with religious undertones? Do you think to some extent they're brainwashing kids with religious preaching?
That's an interesting point. I think that brainwashing probably isn't the right word in this case. I think that subtly influencing is definitely happening. Like subtle influence is happening. And that's concerning. I've talked about undue influence in the past. Let me give you an example of undue influence. You've got a Jehovah's Witness family. They raise this child of theirs to the age of 10 to be a Jehovah's Witness, right? Everything that they do, they take them to every meeting. They have them knocking on doors every weekend. They have them studying every week with the family. They have them reading the Bible every night before they go to sleep. So this kid turns 10, and by this point in time, the kid feels like they're ready to get baptized. Is the kid's decision to get baptized 100% completely their informed choice? Or was it heavily influenced by what they were being told by people around them? A 10-year-old is, I would venture to say, incapable of making a decision as serious as that. If a 10-year-old isn't old enough to legally make a decision like getting married, which is going to affect them for the rest of their lives, they shouldn't legally be allowed to make another decision that's going to affect them for the rest of their lives, like getting baptized as a Jehovah's Witness. That's undue influence. The kid can scream until they're blue in the face that they believe that they believe in Jehovah. They want to get baptized. They believe all of it, and they know what they're doing, and they know that they're making the right choice. They can scream that until they're blue in the face. Does not make it true. Bottom line. So that's undue influence. Getting back to the original question here. What was it? I had it pinned here a second ago, but what was the original question again?
The original question was, how do you feel about religious vlogging channels with religious undertones and kids?
Right. That's not causing undue influence, I wouldn't say. It's causing some level of influence, but not to that extent. Not like you'd see with Jehovah's Witnesses, for example. I find it concerning that they're influencing people like that generally. That is very concerning. And I feel like one good way of countering that is by using the platform that I have on YouTube and talking about it. That's probably a pretty solid way of countering it. I wish there were more solid ways to do it. But brainwashing differs a little bit in the sense that what I'm talking about with undue influence, that's called mind control. Brainwashing is an accelerated, forced mind control through things like intimidation and fear tactics and things like that. Like when a group, captures somebody, puts them in a basement for 3 weeks, a regular old standard U.S. citizen, and when they walk out those doors 3 weeks later, they're suddenly extreme socialists. That's brainwashing. Cults don't really operate that way typically. The military operates that way, and we can talk about whether or not, that's ethical or whatever, but that is how it operates. That would be brainwashing. That's an example of it. Using force and intimidation to, in an accelerated way, control people.
Rand had asked, what do you think of CGP Grey? He makes political videos about such topics. Have you seen his videos before?
I think that's CGP Grey. I actually do know CGP Grey. Awesome YouTube channel. I love that channel. Sometimes they get a little bit in the weeds with things, and it kind of loses my attention a little, But it's a fascinating channel. I love it to death. They've taught me a lot. They talk a lot about politics and how our political system operates in the U.S. and how it differs from other countries and how we can improve it and things. I feel like there's an issue right now in the U.S. where we want to be Americans to the death, just bleed red, white, and blue, and that's great. 100% with you on that. But some other countries have some other ideas that objectively work better. So let's try to incorporate some of those good ideas into our red, white, and blue system that we're so for, I I believe in this country, but I believe that it can be better than it is, and I want to find ways to do that. Believing that the country is already as good as it could possibly be is a disturbing concept. It means it can do no wrong, and that's going down a scary road. So,
This one is from Trigor. What are your views on euthanasia?
okay, euthanasia. Give me 1 second. I want to make sure we're on the same page here. Let me define euthanasia for you. The painless killing of a patient suffering from an incurable and painful disease or in an irreversible coma. The practice is illegal in most countries. When I was in college, I wrote a paper on physician-assisted suicide, basically, whether or not we should allow it. So there are people like cancer patients who are terminal, not going to last another 6 months, and they are absolutely miserable. It's a horrific life that they have to live for the next 6 months. So the question is, should we allow them to do it in their own way and in their own time? Or should we basically force them to follow through with a painful, terrible, horrific death? And my take on it is, there are a lot of people who are very depressed and face these types of feelings. And so it's complicated. I am 100% for the preservation of life as much as possible, in as many cases as possible. But if a patient has been found to be of sound mind and has a terminal incurable illness that is going to take their lives in the next, say, year, for example, I think they should be allowed to go through with that in their own time. I've actually seen it happen. Like, I've watched the process unfold before in a video. I think it was even in a psychology class. A guy was terminally ill, and he was still capable of walking around and talking and communicating with family members, but he did not have long. He had like 4 weeks max. That was it. And so the doctor gave him a prescription for some medicine, and it basically puts him to sleep, and then it's over. So what he did was he takes the medicine, he eats it, and he has a violinist there with him, and his whole family is around him, and they're all talking to him and having a fun time and hanging out and reminiscing with him until he just falls asleep, and then it's done. He went in his own way, in his own time, and it was like he maintained his dignity through the process. I can respect that, and I feel like it should be one of our choices as human beings to be able to do that. But there should most definitely be restrictions on it. You should be of sound mind. You should either be over a certain age, or you should be terminally ill, or both.
On a lighter note, Omega asks, did Alpha Force Zero go trick-or-treating? If so, what did she dress up as?
She did go trick-or-treating, actually. See, this is one thing about trick-or-treat. I love Halloween. I love trick-or-treat. She went as Celia from Descendants 3. I'll show you a picture of Celia. I'm not gonna... I don't even know if I have any pictures of Kylie dressed up. Maybe on my phone, but not like on my computer to show you guys. Anyway, let me show you. This is a picture of Celia from Descendants 3. It's the one with the tiny little itty-bitty hat here. That's how Kylie dressed up. And it was a fun time. Collected lots of candy and all that good stuff. I used to go to houses and tell people that I was collecting candy for Kylie's little sister, who was too young to collect candy. Total bullshit. She doesn't even have a little sister. I just collect it for myself. Actually, she has a half sister, but she's not really involved in my life in any way. So I used to collect it for myself because you know what? I didn't get to collect this shit when I was little. I'm going to collect it now. And if somebody wants to give me shit over it, then they can go fuck themselves as far as I'm concerned. If I want to collect candy, then I'm going to collect candy. I don't care if I am 30. I didn't collect this year, for the record, though. I'm probably not going to collect anymore. I had my time of collecting, and it was fun. I did it for about 5 years, and it was a good time. Got lots and lots of candy, but...
Rayan had asked, why do you like Bernie?
Why do I like Bernie Sanders? That's a good question. Because he seems really genuine. He's got a near spotless record. Dude's been saying the same thing for 50 years practically. I don't know. Since the 80s. He's been delivering the same message since the 1980s. So 40 years, I guess. 30 or 40. Very consistent, very honest, spotless record. And he also stands for things that I stand for too. He's very liberal. He's progressive. He believes in equality of everybody. He believes in Medicare for all. I also believe in that. Believes in tuition-free college. I am so for all of his policies. Now, there are other people out there like, there are other people out there who agree with his assessments with some things. And I wouldn't be too broken up if they got the nomination instead of him. I really want to see Bernie get the nomination, but you know what? If Warren gets it, it'll be okay with me. There are a few politicians out there who I'd be okay with getting the nomination. One of the main factors driving my feelings on who gets the nomination, who I do want and I don't want, is who do I think is going to lose against whoever happens to be the nominee in the Republican Party. Joe Biden is almost certainly going to lose if he's facing up against anybody in the Republican Party, no matter who it is. I think. I mean, maybe he could win. Who knows? But it just seems to me like he has a far lower chance of winning the general election than, say, Bernie or Warren or whoever. So anyways, consistency is what I'd say. Consistency, and I really like his policy positions a lot. All of them. I think I agree with him on just about every single policy position. I haven't seen one yet that I disagree with him on. So if you like what I do and you want to make sure I can continue to do it, you can support me in a few ways. First, you can support me on Patreon. That's probably the best way. But if you want to get something back for your support, you can check out my Teespring. I'm trying to make a shirt design for every cult I've covered. I haven't gotten every one, but I'm working on it. So check it out and see if your cult is up there. Second, you can support me by checking out my game shop. I sell controller, cartridge, and game box stands for every system from the original Nintendo and Sega Game Gear to the Xbox One and Nintendo Switch. So give that a look too. And finally, if you want to support me in some way other than monetarily, you can check out my other YouTube channels. I have a retro game channel where I answer questions like, why does Shy Guy have a mask? And why are CRT TVs the best way to play retro games? I also have the podcast where I talk about stuff I don't feel I can say on a monetized channel. And finally, I have my main channel where I talk about cults. I wish I didn't have to worry about dancing around subjects carefully in the first place, but I chose to do this as a full-time job, so unfortunately I rely on YouTube's AdSense and on the support of patrons to continue doing the work I do. Anyways, check me out in all those places if you haven't already. Thanks for listening, guys.